Welcome everyone to another episode of our Wisdom of the Heart video series. These are topic-based conversations based on A Course of Love. And let me hold up the book here. Everyone can see it.
Great.
Yeah. And the first receiver is Mari Perrone. Okay, so today's topic is going to be really interesting. We're going to be talking about the feeling state and going into that, which is something that's really huge, that's brought up in the 40 days and 40 nights of A Course of Love. Let me introduce our guest, a returning guest. Evalyn is here back with us, Evalyn Sorrentino. And Evalyn has a lot of personal experience on this topic. She's a meditation instructor. She's a yoga instructor, and she's also a Course of Love facilitator. So welcome again, Evalyn.
Thank you, Lynn. It's always an honor to be here and to see your happy, smiling face.
So this is from day 12 in the 40 days and 40 nights. And it says, now we listen to feelings. Now we listen to feelings and understand what they have to say to us. Now we listen with a new ear, the ear of the heart. Now we recognize the thoughts that would censor our feelings, calling them selfish, uncaring, or judgmental. We examine and we realize it is our thoughts and not our feelings that are selfish, uncaring, and judgmental. We realize this because we realize the sacred space that we have become. Evalyn, I'll go ahead and give it to you and we'll expand from there.
Thanks, Lynn. So as you're reading that, I could see the road that goes from feeling state when we don't feel, how it's intercepted by the thought. And the thought then makes a judgment, good, bad, and then various shades of this good and bad, fearful, loving. And then from that judgment, it creates the emotion. So people so often confuse feelings with emotion, but feelings are the rudimentary principle of being a human being. We cannot feel beingness until we learn to express our feelings. The human being must be a sentient being. And as soon as we have a thought about those sensations, we automatically move it into judgment, emotion, and we live in our head. And when we live in our head, everything becomes justified, everything becomes defended, and we are no longer open, even though we can fool ourselves into thinking we're open. So I'll give you an example from one of the courses that I taught to parents. Many times the parents come to me when they've had their second child because they begin to recognize some type of an emotional maladjustment, like yelling at their first child, losing their temper, and they don't want to do this with the second child, and they don't want to do it with the first child either. So they spend some time with me. So many times I'll work with the whole little family, ask them on certain sessions, bring all the children in. So through my studies of working with parents, I began to realize that little children actually have a memory of their birth. If you ask them, and you ask them at an early age, and they have good communication skills, in other words, they're somewhat understanding of their environment and what happens. They're not closed down because of abuse. So this one little boy, he was 2.5, really good verbal skills. But I asked him, do you remember anything about being born? And I said, can you tell me about it? He said, but I have to really show you. I said, okay. So he said, it's like this. So he started to
Wow.
contort his body, right? And as you can imagine, his head is coming through the uterus and he's getting his arms out, and then maybe he's being pulled out. And then his legs became like jelly and he falls on the floor as he's telling me this. He
Wow.
was sitting down, he falls on the floor and he's like, "Ugh."
Mm-hmm.
He said, that's all I have to say about it. So
Yeah.
when you and I were talking right before we started the recording, this
Mm-hmm.
little boy came to my mind and I thought, right, he was a feeling baby. You
Wow.
see, he did not,
Mm-hmm.
and today at 2.5, he could not put that into words, because to put it into words would to move it into an emotion. So he
Mm-hmm.
did not say it was a yucky experience, it was a scary experience, nothing. He just put his body through the contortions that he might have gone through when he was being born, actually
Mm-hmm.
coming down the birth canal. So this showed me how feelings are the most rudimentary aspect of the human being.
Mm-hmm.
And then if a thought comes along, like if he did have the thought, oh, that was a scary experience, he would have had a lot of other well, that becomes a judgment, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So then having all this commentary gives it a judgment. Birth is a scary experience. And therefore, I have these emotions. Oh, it was really hard. It was difficult. I wouldn't want to go through that again. These are all emotional aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So if a human being can return to that primary state of being human,
Mm-hmm.
get in touch with our feelings, and getting in touch with our feelings is essential if we want to be able to change our modus operandi and be more loving in our lives with
Mm-hmm.
others. So feeling state allows us to know without experimentation and without the failure of experimentation, because the failure of experimentation happens all when we live in our head, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We don't. So as soon as we allow ourselves to go into the feeling state and we
Mm-hmm.
connect with any other sentient being, animal, person, tree, anything,
Mm-hmm.
we are now connected to the oneness of all.
I noticed when you were saying with the little boy, like he felt the most rudimentary part of himself, what was the feeling like we're just like in this raw essence of ourselves, and it's something that cannot even be named. How do we even talk about them? And then can you help us with that? And then what the difference with the emotions and how the thoughts play into this, all of this?
I'll break it down.
Yeah, please.
It is true that when we use the word purely feelings and separate it from emotion, that it's difficult to use words to describe. So many times I'll switch feelings with sensations.
Okay.
So feelings equal sensations, sensations equal feelings. They are pure in the fact that they have not been condemned, they have not been adulated, they've not been covered over with an judgment or an emotion or any type of justification. They've not been run away from, they've not been denied, they simply are. Feeling sensations allow us to be totally present in the here and now. I cannot live in the future past when I am in a sensation state. It's impossible. I use that term future past, 2 different time zones other than being right here, right now, because the future is always predicated on our past experiences. So I just call it a future past. So when I have these feeling sensations and allow myself to feel them and fully focus on them, fully feel them, and by doing so, I start the transformation, transmutation, whatever word you want to call it, that it changes from this sensation to a learning opportunity for me. And I can move it into a space of love. And 100% of the time, when I've given it that concentration, that's all I feel afterwards. So despite whatever is occurring within me, when I can hold my attention on that, eventually it dissolves into love. And when I say dissolves into love, I don't mean the emotion love. I mean in the super sensual, where now I feel God all around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I am part of that. It's as if there's a connecting web, and this connecting web is including me, and I'm connected to everyone, every sentient being, everything. There's no place that I'm not connected to.
That would take, in order to fully feel my feelings, it would take me like not in the chatter of the mind, or not in any kind of emotional reactivity. I'm just present with what's going on inside of me. It's more of an experience. I guess that would be the right word. It's an experience.
Yes. And so that's important. And what you read earlier, that little paragraph that you read, it talks about the experience. And experience is 100% sensation.
Okay.
You cannot have a God experience in your head. If you do, it's false. It's a false sense of it's a spiritual bypass. Is that the right word?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Spiritual bypass. Yeah.
If you have a God experience in your head, it's a spiritual bypass. So experiences, for the sake of this video, we will articulate and use words to describe them. But just when I wanted to show you what that little boy did, right? I didn't use words like he twisted his body, he convulsed. Right. I showed you what he did. So our feelings are natural. And when we're present in the moment, these feelings are pure and clear, and they're there just to help us learn how to direct our attention, to move to love or to move to fear. But until a person comes to this aspect, they're afraid of feeling, and they live in their head. I was very afraid of feelings as a child. I lived in an environment that where my mother was mentally ill. And so there were great vacillations of love in contrast to love that would go on in the home. So I was really afraid of feelings, and I started to develop mental defense mechanisms to help myself navigate in that kind of environment. So I had an accumulation of suppressed and repressed feelings by learning to live in my head. So most human beings do have some type of suppressed and repressed feelings because we've been taught to live in our head.
Yeah.
So a person who is now an adult and is hearing this for the first time must understand that we have two types of feelings: old feelings that are going to surface so that we can transmute them, transform them, open this space for love, and feelings that are happening right now that are pure. So in the grace of life, the feelings that we experience right now are usually feelings that make us feel expansive and more loving. And feelings that are historical, and we have to kind of like open that closet of our history and sweep it out. Those feelings are usually ones that we made the judgment, and so we want to stay away from it. I don't want to.
So those feelings, would you say that those are like the feelings that we've denied and repressed, that somehow that remains sort of like within, I don't know where, I know that the Course of Love has a beautiful phrase, how it says that, we've shelved them away just like museum pieces, like we've buried them. What I hear is like it's stored in the body somehow. Maybe it's in it can, and because of that, it can cause stress and come out in all kinds of ailments and sickness. And so yeah, I mean, I see two things you're saying. There's one part that's been shelved away like museum pieces, buried, and then there's the other one is in the here and now, sensations that are arising. And so I guess what comes up for me is, and what probably a lot of people have questions on, is the ones that we've shelved away and repressed. Is it just a matter of when I become reactive, or any kind of projection or judgment that that's a part of me that wants to be loved?
So the first thing that has to happen, it's like learning a whole nother language. So before you have an entire conversation with someone in this new language that you're learning, learn just the basics. Then once we learn the basics, then we can go on to maybe conversational language. And then from conversational language, start to read or be able to have dialogue with people who are more sophisticated. And then we're able to speak to a person who is a native of that country, and we speak fluently, and they understand us, and they don't ask us what country we were from, because our language skills match their language skills. So if we think of learning sensations or relearning sensations that way, that's the way we have to travel. So the first thing people have to do is just be paying attention to physical sensations. So start with the neutral ones. Do you notice when your shoulders collapse and you're in a protective mode covering your heart? Do you notice when your shoulders open? Do you notice when heat is rising from the root chakra, you're down by in your pelvis area, and starts to rise? Just even notice, like in sex would be a good place. Do you notice that first thing that happens to create arousal? What is the very first thing that happens before you know? And just start to feel these sensations. So just learn the basic vocabulary. Once we start to learn this, then we can learn what happens to you when somebody says something to you that is you view as slightly offensive. And if you could just keep the two lips closed and just watch what happens inside of you when this happens. Can you just feel those sensations without saying a word, and just let them go, and then continue the conversation as if nothing came out to offend you? So these are now, we're moving into the conversational aspect of learning the language. Then when we start to become versed in this, then we're ready for the dialogue. So the dialogue now is, we're aware that there are sensations when I'm totally present in the moment. Oh, yeah, I feel led, but we can't really say yet. What makes you feel led? Is it like a magnetism that happens outside of you? Do you feel an impulse within you, pushing your body, generating your body in a certain direction? Do you feel a sense of peace just coming over you, and then a knowing that occurs in that peace? So these are the beginning stages. So then when we get to these paths where now I can trust sensations, then the old stuff starts to come to the surface. Now, what do I have to do with that old stuff? Usually just pay attention. Don't push it down with any addictions. Don't run away. Don't walk away. Don't busy ourselves so fast that we don't have to feel it. Feel it. It's not going to kill you. It's like an ocean wave coming over you, and let it go. If we don't pay attention to sensations, this is usually what happens to people who keep a pattern of denial. Anxiety starts to develop. They don't know what the source of anxiety is, but the anxiety is from having all these feelings constantly suppressed or repressed. Then the other thing that happens, I'm still not paying attention to the anxiety, so I start to get sick. If I get a certain illness over and over and over again, and I still don't pay attention, then I get a chronic illness. Yeah, and so remember, whenever we don't feel sensations, when we don't allow ourselves to experience the sensations, we are in a defensive mode, and defensive mode is attack. Attack is stress, and the body does not respond well to stress. There's like 12 pages, maybe more, of illnesses that are directly related to stress. So this is what happens when we don't allow ourselves to feel the sensations. If we are allowed to feel the sensations, our stress level starts to come way down. Our sense of joy happens more frequently, and the joy is experienced as, a lightheartedness, a lightness in the body, a lithe movement. We probably laugh a little bit more, smile a little bit more.
I just wanted to say too that I feel like, people were asking, well, how do I do all this by myself? I can't do this, alone. I don't have any friends. My husband doesn't want to talk to me about this, that kind of thing. And then I just feel like I just wanted to mention the importance of having a sacred space and being with others who are willing to support that. Because that was like transformational for me. I wanted to mention this. I liked it. It said it's not really about feeling better, like this whole path of transformation. It's not really about feeling better, but about being better at feeling. And I kind of like that.
Well said, well said. Yes, you do need someone to help you. If you have a deeply intense super sensual connection. And some people develop this. Some people are awarded it by grace. When we have a super sensual connection, all of this is so easy to follow.
When you say super sensual, can you just say briefly what that is?
Sure. It's an experience that when you are alone without any distractions, you don't feel alone at all.
Oh,
and
okay.
you feel so complete. You feel so complete and so at one with the entire world.
Okay.
Another way.
Alone, but not lonely. Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely not lonely at all. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Another way is to be ready for it, and it'll be brought to you. A group, an organization, another person. It could be, like Joan Osborne says, it could be a stranger on a bus.
Oh, yeah.
The first time you have that sensation, you'll know it, and you'll know that you want to do this because it's liberation. So let's say I've had sensations that were always judged in my mind as a murderous rage, and I did not want to feel that because I would be afraid that I would actually kill somebody if I could feel that sense of anger in me. Well, that sense of anger was only because of repressed frustrations over a period of time. Keep putting stuff in that closet, in that closet. This is my house. My body is my house. But I haven't lived in it if I haven't experienced sensations. So how do I live in my house? I have to allow myself to experience sensations. And so it's like opening the door for the first time. Oh, okay, here's an empty room. But what's in that door? Oh, it's a closet. Oh my gosh, I don't want to look in there. Bones and bugs. Before you go into the next room, you must empty the closet. And you have to go through room to room, floor to floor until you can actually do that. But when we do that, what we find is the liberation, so that these sensations that make me think I'm a terrible person because I want to kill somebody or do harm to somebody, including myself, when I start to allow myself to feel that sensation and recognize it's just like an ocean wave, or it's like falling down what I thought was an abyss, but instead it's a tunnel of love that brings me out to such beautiful pastures of softness and love and grace. So all I need is that first experience to be willing to try it. And then I realized I fully felt it. I didn't judge it. Except for saying, oh no, here it comes. Okay, here it comes, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. I know it's going to be okay because now I have that support group or support person that told me it was going to be okay. And then this, what I used to call murderous rage, comes up. And guess what? I didn't murder anybody. And when it left, I created this space of love. Years ago, I worked with a Vietnam vet, and he just stopped closing his eyes when we were doing our final yoga. So one day I said, do you mind staying after class? I just want to talk to you about one of the asanas. No, I'll stay. Well, he didn't expect I was going to talk about the savasana, which is when you're supposed to close your eyes.
Every yoga student's favorite pose.
And he started to talk, and we were there for an hour and a half in the studio. And he said, When he closes his eyes, he remembers when he was in Vietnam.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But this is the part that he remembered the most and didn't want to look at. And so through, just the loving way that I have, I guess, with people, I said, did you enjoy killing? I said, I know people who have enjoyed killing, and I think that's a good thing when you can realize you enjoyed the killing. And he looked at me dead on. Oh my God. Yes, I enjoyed the killing. So then we could start to talk about that.
Yeah.
But I held that space for about 2 minutes before I said anything so that he could feel that remorse.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the sense of remorse is something that we must experience with sensations. You cannot have remorse in your head. Remorse in your head is a person saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and they continue in the bad behavior. Remorse is a bodily sensation that comes from way down, could come from your feet, your knees, your hips, your groin, and it rises up. And when it comes out, a tear, a flood of tears comes out.
Yeah.
I went over, I held him, and I said, this is what you did to survive. You know what it feels like now to kill. Have you ever wanted to kill anybody since? No. I said, can you feel the love moving in because you're finally looking at this? He said, I could never tell another human being. I said, that's what the love is. You could tell somebody now and not feel ashamed of it. This is what war does to people. You were in a situation that encouraged it, blah, blah, blah. Just feel it. When he came back to the studio, it was 3 weeks later. Was I concerned a little bit? But he came back, took that savasana. He was lighthearted. He was jovial. He was light on his feet. He went deeper into so many postures because he was no longer feeling restricted by grief and anger that he didn't want to feel. And the guilt, which there was no guilt. All he had to do was feel the remorse so he could move to the state of love.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example. I mean, he had to fully own that. Yeah, to fully own it and feel that like to the core, to the bone, in order for it to pass through. Is there anything like last minute thoughts you'd like to share before we close, Evalyn?
Well, I would like just to say that if anybody listens to this and they're curious about it, not to do an advertisement for myself, but just as an angel who wants to help people, get in touch with me. The yoga studio is a by donation studio. We don't charge any particular thing, so we never want to turn anybody away for their inability to pay. And my whole purpose in life is to learn what feelings I want to keep and what feelings I want to let go of. And I learn this best when I help others learn what they want to keep and what they want to let go of.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. And I'll share my experience too. I've been working with Evalyn too in her meditation classes, and even in Course of Love classes that she holds. I mean, I feel like I've discovered a new way to read A Course of Love, because it's not an intellectual focus. It's very feeling oriented and very heart centered. And so anyway, Evalyn, I think we're going to have to close for now, but it's always a joy to be with you in more ways than one. And so thank you so much. And we'll definitely have to do a part 2, because I don't feel like we've even started this conversation. But thank you for all you've contributed and all your graciousness that you bring to all of us. So we'll close for now, and peace, love, grace, and blessings to all.
Yeah, thanks. And that iceberg is pretty big, so we'll just take care of the next little spot next time. I'll get my pickaxe.
Okay. All right. Good night.